4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studio in New York City. A fusion of politics, commentary, entertainment, and sports. Steve and his team bring you the latest news and opinion now. Here is Steve Malzberg.
You are the ones who helped reach all the voters. Make sure that we knew that they were important to this election because it's a group effort, it's not a solo. And so we all have a right to be proud of our state tonight. Thank you very much. Thank you for this wonderful honor and wonderful challenge that lies ahead. Thank you very, very much.
All right, folks, that was the scene last night as Thad Cochran, in a runoff with his Republican primary challenger, Chris McDaniel, declares victory. Now, McDaniel gave a speech. He refused to go away. He said, "We'll see you soon." And this was at the end of an angry speech where he wasn't too happy that Democrats played a big part in this very close runoff election. Democrats allowed to vote in that state in Republican primaries and vice versa. African Americans came out in big numbers in certain precincts as well. And one of the reasons might have been this flyer that was put out that said or claimed the Tea Party intends to prevent blacks from voting on Tuesday. It also portrayed Thad Cochran as a champion of civil rights, which he may very well be, and Chris McDaniel as, let's just say, quite the opposite. So we're going to talk about all of that and much, much more. John Boehner, as we mentioned, announcing today that he is suing Barack Obama in order to have the separation of powers upheld, in order to uphold the meaning of the Constitution, and to prevent the president from circumventing Congress. And Ken Blackwell joins us. First, though, let's watch John Boehner.
Constitution makes it clear that a president's job is to faithfully execute the laws. In my view, the president has not faithfully executed the laws. We have a system of government outlined in our Constitution with the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. Congress has its job to do, and so does the president. And when there's conflicts like this between the legislative branch and the administrative branch, it's, in my view, our responsibility to stand up for this institution in which we serve.
All right, and that is John Boehner, as we mentioned, announcing that he will be suing the President of the United States. And joining us now, as promised, is Ken Blackwell, former mayor of Cincinnati, former Ohio State Secretary of State, former Ohio Secretary of State, and senior fellow for family empowerment at the Family Research Council. Ken, good to talk to you again, sir.
Steve, it's good to be with you.
I appreciate that. All right, so, I've asked over and over and over again rhetorically, who's going to rein in this president? What are the Republicans doing? What can they do to the I have a pen president? And now you got Boehner and other Republicans apparently in the House who are going to sue the president.
Absolutely. I think there are a couple of tracks. One is a political track. The other is a legal track. And Mr. Boehner is pursuing or is indicating that he's going to pursue a legal track. Look, in addition to that, there is a political track, and that means that it becomes increasingly more important that the opposition party, the Republican Party, takes absolute control of the Senate. These latest actions by President Obama makes it very clear that, as Ken Kukowski and I predicted in 2010, this president is hell-bent in creating an imperial presidency. It means that he will go outside the law, around the law, to accomplish his ends. He believes in an imperial executive branch. It is totally inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States. It concentrates too much power in the executive branch, and we must stop him politically and legally. So this dual track approach is imperative for us to follow through on.
And as a former, Secretary of State of Ohio, let me talk a little bit about the legal approach here by Boehner. What could he do? I mean, how could he go after the president, and how could he get him to stop, as in the view of you and many others, circumventing the Constitution through the courts? How would that work?
One, the Congress has standing on matters of the Constitution. It's going to have to be a clear majority in the House, but the House does have standing where it is a question of a violation of the Constitution. So I would hope that my fellow Ohioan has counted the votes, and he is sure that what he can do now, he would have the full backing of his House. I think it is important, and that's a long process.
Yeah.
It's a long process. That's why, while I think he has to start it now, he has to whip up the rhetoric around that action. It is also important that we, in the grassroots of the American political sector, we realize that we have something that we can say, we the people can say at the ballot box.
Now, when you talk about taking back the Senate and controlling both branches, both chambers, the House and the Senate, are you and you talk about that in reference to stopping the president as one of two ways? Are you talking about impeachment, the power of impeachment?
No, I'm talking about getting control where we, in fact, can stop this legislatively. I think it's very imperative that we do that.
But he's going around, but he's circumventing the Congress in many instances.
I'm going to say, look, there are people who will look at the impeachment track, and that's when a president puts at risk through his intentional actions or his incompetence, puts American national security and American lives at risk. And this president is both incompetent and he is intentionally moving away from those things that have made us an exceptional nation. We can't say that he didn't telegraph his punches.
Oh no, he was going to fundamentally change us. Electricity rates would, by definition, skyrocket. You wouldn't be able to open a new coal plant. He didn't have a problem with gasoline going to $7, $8 a gallon as long as it wasn't too quickly. We had to have a conversation about end-of-life care. He told us everything.
Oh, he did, and this is why we must paint a different picture. We must chart a different course, and we must do it in what Reagan called bold colors.
Yep.
They're not pastel colors. And Steve, that's why what happened in Mississippi is disquieting.
And well, you're referring. Let me just you're referring to Thad Cochran and his victory over Chris McDaniel.
Where there was a deliberate effort to circumvent the will of Republicans in Mississippi, and through a deliberate and clever strategy, invite liberal Democrats into the Republican primary by saying that Mississippi needs D.C., which was code for we need the pork, we need the dependency, and therefore what he did was he made an appeal to those who are dependent on big government and those who, by their own desires and intent, are advocates for big government.
Well, lots of Democrats came out, lots of African Americans, and I just want to point out to you that there's a flyer that was put on National Review by our friend John Fund, and it says that this is a flyer that was distributed in heavily black precincts, suggesting just how Thad Cochran may have accomplished getting so many African Americans and Democrats out to vote. The flyer, the headline is "The Tea Party intends to prevent blacks from voting on Tuesday." It then goes goes on to portray Thad Cochran as a great civil rights leader and that supported MLK Memorial, supports public schools, supports Jackson Medical Mall, and then Chris McDaniel, Tea Party, voted against MS Civil Rights Museum, opposes federal funding of public schools, blah, blah, blah. So the race card. Now, I don't know if Thad Cochran sent out these flyers, but I trust our friend John Fund. What do you think of these flyers, no matter who sent them out?
Well, again, it is the ugly side. It is the dark side of American politics. This is a deliberate attempt to misdefine and destroy a legitimate challenge to the establishment, and most notably to the status quo. Look, we're not going to change Washington. We're not going to get back to those things that have made us exceptional. One, the primacy of the individual, the supremacy of God in the culture. It's not a smaller government, a strong and robust defense,
right,
and a growing economy. We're not going to get back to that by saying what we need is more pork, more dependency,
right,
and larger government.
Ken, we only have less than a minute. I just want to interrupt, but I just want to ask you, there's been hints by McDaniel. He said, I'll see you all soon, indicating he might challenge this, the election results, or challenge Cochran somehow. Should he keep the fight going, or should he just go away?
Well, I don't know what his options are, but I will say this, that if those folks who got those liberal Democrats to come into the Republican primary think that they're going to stick with Cochran in November, I got a bridge that I need to say.
Ken, great to talk to you, sir. Thank you so much.
Always good to be with you.
Thank you. Ken Blackwell, ladies and gentlemen. When we come back, retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters on Iraq.